Welcome to MMA Fancast. My name's Luke, and I'm joined by Asher Frederick. I might have said that wrong. Hold on. Frederick. Yeah. Did I get it right?
Yes, sir.
See, I should have acted like I knew what it was, and it wouldn't have even made a big deal. Asher, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Well, it is really exciting to have young, talented MMA fighters on the show. You definitely fit the bill. You are high ranked, undefeated as an amateur, 135 pounds, 5-0. You're 21 years old now. You took your first fight 2 years ago. Let's jump in there. What led you to take that fight in 2019? What was your background leading up to that?
Well, I wrestled a couple of years in high school and then a year in college, and I was training kickboxing with my uncle for a couple of years, and I took a standoff fight right before I left for college. And then while I was in college, I took two more, and I was 3-0 in that. And then I dropped out of college to pursue MMA, and then that's when I took my first MMA fight.
Seems like a lot of big decisions in your life. So let's back up. Before you dropped out of college to pursue MMA, and obviously it's been going very well, what type of fighting were you 3-0 in?
Sandow. It's Chinese kickboxing. Basically, it's just stand-up, standard Muay Thai, except you can do takedowns, stuff like that.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I know the Muay Thai rule set. I didn't know. So it's not point striking. It's full. It's not like if you turn your back, they reset or anything. The type of.
Yeah, no. It keeps going.
Okay, gotcha. Guys, because I know there's some aspects of karate where once backs are turned, they stop and restart and all that. So, gotcha. So, what made the click? Was it going 3-0 in the Sandow fighting that led you to think, let me transition to MMA, or did you find a gym?
I mean, the goal was always to fight MMA, but we wanted to, my uncle and I, we wanted to slowly build into it. That's why we chose Sandow, because you could do your striking and takedowns, but they would stop it as soon as you hit the ground after a takedown.
Right.
And that was basically my basis for MMA, learning my sweeps, learning just how to get comfortable throwing my hands and seeing takedowns.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense, and it's my first exposure to it, so I'll have to do some more research. But it really sounds nice because a lot of development to MMA, and I'll ask you here in a second, have to take into account submissions on the ground, because I've seen lots of fighters in early amateurs, and that's the advantage of BJJ, right? But in early amateur fights, they're doing well, a takedown, striking, submission, and they're done, right? Because of how quickly submissions can happen. So what's your background with BJJ? When did you get into it to feel more comfortable after the takedown happens?
Well, I mean, I got into BJJ while I was still wrestling while I was a senior in high school. And I mean, I didn't do the gi necessarily consistently, so I'm still a white belt, but I did a lot of no-gi. And I've done a bunch of no-gi tournaments, and I've placed first at a bunch of them. So that's where my BJJ comes into play.
Absolutely. Well, that's well done there. We could have a long conversation about the belt system being geared, which is understandable. It's the traditional belt system being geared toward gi. Some people will not like the fact that in some ways there may need to be a belt system in no gi, but it tends to be no gi is more outcome based for MMA or for no gi tournaments than ranking based. So that can work in and of itself. You are 5-0.
Yes, sir.
In your wins, because you've won by strikes, you've won by split decision, which we'll get to here at some point, because those are always tough, and that's okay. That's part of building your skill set. But when has BJJ come into play in the cage, given the fact that you have other skill sets in addition to it?
Well, I believe it was my fourth MMA fight. I came out, I got clipped, got picked up, slammed on my head, and I hit a Granby roll, and I was still there, and I was able to recover while I was grappling and getting punched, and I hit a Granby, and then I rolled right into a triangle, and I mean, I almost finished it in the first, but I didn't have it in tight enough. I didn't finish my knees, and so I couldn't get the finish. And then the fight went all 3 rounds, and I was just basically shooting and just constantly trying to make the fight ugly and just trying to outwork him. And fortunately, I did enough for the judges to give me that fight.
Absolutely fantastic, and that's a great story to kind of show that in MMA or any fights, things can go badly in a hurry, but it's what you do in that. You almost remind me of the Tony Ferguson. He would throw those rolls in there. And now, when Tony Ferguson was on his roll, everything was working out for him. And obviously now he's had some losses, but I think he did show that if you're unpredictable and you're willing to fight through things going wrong, you can actually make things work out. So that's a great example.
Yeah.
Let's get to the split decision. I believe that was your most recent win. How did that go down? How do you see it now that you've watched it? What are your thoughts on that win?
All right, man. I'm gonna be honest, and this isn't me talking shit, but that judge who gave the fight to him. I'm not even joking. I'm pretty sure he was on crack, because everybody who was there before and after the fight all told me there was no way in hell that was a split decision. I beat him up the entire fight. I mean, I sent him to the hospital because I busted his liver and he had internal bleeding. And I mean, he may have hit me like 5 times, and then I hit him probably like 60 or 70 times.
Yeah.
I don't see how they ruled that a split decision in my mind.
Yes, fair enough. Fair enough on that. I just had Orion Kosi on the show. You may not know his name, but he's UFC fighter who got in through the Dana White Contender Series. Best skills to him coming up in the end of July for his UFC debut. But he was talking about a similar experience, amateur career, split decision that seemed insane to him that he won, but it seemed insane that any judge was against, was against him. So I think it's a maturing process for you. How did you mentally process that, knowing that sometimes you're going to put a beat down on somebody, but you never know how the judges are going to see it?
I mean, man, it makes me nervous, and I should probably hunt more for the finish, and or when it's there, attack it and just go for broke maybe. But if the judges see it that way and they give it that way, then I got to take them out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Taking the judges out of the equation is a good thing, but you also have to be aware as a style, whatever style you're using, that you don't change it so much that you end up falling into other issues if you're trying to finish too much, so it's all about balancing. Getting back a little bit, you said that you dropped out of college so you could pursue MMA full-time, and obviously you're an amateur. So how do you make that work to live? You're young, but how do you make that work with all that you need to do after you've dropped out? How are you making ends meet, and how is this all working out for you?
I mean, I get up, I run in the morning, then I go work a hard physical landscaping job all day, get off at 4, and then I train the rest of the day. And then I come home, sleep, and then just wake up, repeat.
So you are already, it sounds like, training quite literally at that pro level.
Yeah, because I want to be ahead of everybody else in the game. Like, I don't want somebody, while they're asleep, I want to be up working. I want to be ahead of them, because I'm behind in wrestling, because I started when I was like 16, and there's people who've been wrestling their entire lives. But I want to show that I can be just as good as them without having wrestled as long. I want to outwork them and break them.
Sounds like a great motivation. Particularly in the wrestling world. I joked beforehand that this could be a long interview if I start talking about my love for GSP. But one thing that I always appreciated about him, who had incredible MMA wrestling, is he did not have high school or college wrestling experience to fight. So I do think there's obviously a difference between pure wrestling and MMA wrestling. Now, DC Cormier and Henry Cejudo has proved that if you're at the best of the best wrestling, you can figure out MMA, obviously. But this also segues into your opponent. You're coming into 247 Fighting Championships August 7th. You've got a title shot against Cam Algier, who's also 5-0. And hats off to Ryan Middleton and Jim Mooney for putting this fight together, because a 5-0 amateur versus a 5-0 amateur often doesn't really happen. You know, that's a high level amateur. You guys are both pro level already. And so it's great to put this match together. But you mentioned going into fights wanting to prove that your wrestling can compete with somebody who's been wrestling longer. And Cam has a wrestling experience himself. What do you think coming into a fight against somebody who's been winning fights by being well-rounded, but also a lot of wrestling? Is this something you're looking forward to see how your wrestling matches up against his, and how does that play out?
Yeah, man, I'm honestly looking to see how it plays out. I mean, and it's going to be a dogfight. It's just going to be as simple as that. It's going to be a long night for both of us. I mean, that's the way I'm looking at it. You know, I see him shooting, and just we're going to be grappling. We're going to be throwing strikes from the clinch. We're going to be throwing strikes everywhere. It's just going to be an ugly fight.
That's a heck of a prediction. You mentioned making your previous couple fights an ugly fight. Is that kind of your style, that you want it to be something that brings the best out of you and also pushes the other person?
Yeah, in a sense. I mean, you know, I want to prove that when it gets tough, that no one will outwork me. No one's going to outcondition me. No one's going to break me. And I'm just going to keep coming. And I'm going to put that pressure on. That's my goal with fighting, is just to show that I've got the most heart, that no one's going to take that. Because, look at Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor. McGregor made all that money. He lost that hunger. But Dustin Poirier has heart. And you can't teach heart. You either have it or you don't.
Well, good point on all that. Speaking of the UFC, you mentioned Dustin Poirier, and what a great, he's the guy you can root for. He has the Good Fight Foundation where he helps people. I mean, it's just, he's a great all-around story and a great guy. And obviously, some people are going to want to see a fourth fight. Clearly, they're going to make it because it makes money. I think Dustin's already proven kind of what he can bring to the table against Conor. But who do you really like to watch in the UFC? You mentioned Dustin. Who's somebody else you really like watching?
Bro, man, honestly, I got to go with my man, TJ Dillashaw. That's my favorite fighter.
Okay. What do you like about TJ Dillashaw?
Just the way he mixes up his striking, his angles, his footwork, how he uses his feints, everything.
Makes sense. You know, coming out of the Team Alpha Male and then the Bang Muay Thai, clearly he and obviously Cody and Dominic Cruz all kind of showed that you're at that weight class too, the 135. How much do you watch 135ers at the pro level and try to game plan? Are you at the point where you're watching pro fighters thinking, what would I do if I were in against this guy? And
Yeah,
that
man.
When does that start?
It starts as soon as I flip on. I'll wake up at like 2 a.m. some nights, and I'll just throw on fights, and I will just watch them just for an hour or two maybe, and then go right back to bed.
Well, it doesn't sound like you are low on hunger and desire, which is wonderful. Let's get back to coming into Pittsburgh. From my understanding, you're already a champ. You wrote on Facebook that you want to become champ. Are you already a champ someplace else, or am I pulling that wrong?
No, man, I'm not a champ. I put the hashtag champ camp.
Oh, well, there I go, not reading the hashtag. I thought that's smart. I thought it was hashtag champ. So I apologize. There I go. So obviously hashtag champ camp makes more sense. Sorry about that. So this is your first championship. Clearly you're experienced in MMA. Coming into Pittsburgh, fighting the Pittsburgh already. He's already the champion for 247. What does that feel like, fighting for your first belt in sort of hostile territory?
It's a little nerve-wracking, but I drove all the way to South Carolina with my team, and we fought a uncrowned Street Beefs champ, and I fought him in front of his whole hometown, and I beat him. I beat the brakes off of him, stuffed all his takedowns, took him down, and going into hostile territory, that's fun. That's fun.
Well, I'm glad you have that attitude, and it sounds like you and your gym are willing to travel. Clearly, this is a shorter trip for you than the Carolinas. So that's kind of thrilling. What camp are you in? Who are your main coaches and training partners? Who's kind of been working? You mentioned your uncle. Does he take a role in it, or are you in a different gym? What's going on with that?
Yeah, he still has a role in it. He's primarily my conditioning and striking coach, and I have my head coach, Josh Williams. And I also have one of my boxing coaches, Chad Van Sickle, and I have a few jiu-jitsu coaches that I, see. And I got a dog in Skylar Bray as my teammate. I got a dog who's 3-0, Jordan Burkholder as a teammate. I've got Melvin Harris, who's fighting for a title in 2 weeks. I'm surrounded by killers. We all just get in there and we just grind.
Well, obviously your gym's doing well, both with you and the other. And we were just mentioning you liking TJ Dillashaw and how camps kind of rise up. Obviously Alpha Male rose up, and it's you kind of see how a camp, when they get the right people and the right chemistry and the right training and the right partners and the right sparring partners, it's like not one person gets good, a whole bunch of people get good at one time. It sounds like that's what's happening with you. What's your gym's name, although you might be split between gyms?
My primary gym is Ronin Training Center.
Ronin, okay.
And my other gym is Varus Fitness and Martial Arts.
That's always great. One of the reasons why I love doing this show is because I interview UFC fighters, I interview amateurs, debuters, the whole works. And everybody deserves a good gym, good trainers that help them get their best. Some's best will be at the absolute top, and some's best will be whatever they can do. So it's always great to see that. When you're 5-0 and when you're coming in for a title fight, when do you start thinking pro? I've asked Cam the same question, and I think obviously you don't want to rush your amateur career, so this is not me putting pressure on you. You could fight another 10 times as amateur, but do you have a game plan, or is that kind of close to your vest and you'll deal with that later?
I truly believe that when my coaches feel that I'm ready, they'll give me the nod for me to go pro. That's the way I look at it. I know me and my coach have already talked about it and everything. We're going to see how this fight goes, and then maybe a couple more, and then maybe pro, or I don't know.
Sure. Well, that's a solid answer, given credit to your coaches and recognizing that that's not really just a you decision, that's a team decision, which is good. And what are you looking for performance-wise for you? Every test is a tough test. Clearly, you're challenging undefeated. He's challenging undefeated. It's a great matchup. But what are you looking for from yourself in this fight?
I just want to go out there and showcase the best of me possible. I went out my last fight and I looked phenomenal, I feel like. And I want to go out and I want to look even better. Trim the fat and sharpen the axe and just keep going.
Your attitude is fantastic. Speaking of trimming the fat, how are you at making 135? You're 5'5" listed, so I would think that's a fairly decent size to weight, but I might as well ask it.
Man, my last fight, I cut all the way from 160 to 135. It's not a huge cut. I got an alpha test and it said I could make 125. So,
is that one of those tests that check to see how much water and how much weight and how much bone and all that? Okay.
Yeah.
Seems like 125 might be. Well, I'm
I'll probably die getting down there.
Well, and that's a very real thing. Where remember, I think it was Henan Barrow. Wasn't it Henan Barrow who passed out cutting weight? This is back right around the TJ Dillashaw rise. Yeah. I think it was. And there has to be a limit to the weight cutting and what's healthy for a person. So you and your nutritional team will figure that out. But it is exciting for anybody who knows MMA. For you, what does August 7th? You have about a month. What are you still trying to get done before August 7th? Not secret wise, but what are you still looking to do for you before August 7th?
Just make sure my techniques are perfect my game plan for the fight, get my nutrition right, start cutting the weight, and just getting down.
Well, it'll be incredible to see you in action. You're going to be taking on as the challenger against the reigning defending Cam Allgaier for 247 Fighting Championships. For your friends and family that are going to be too far away, I believe there will be a pay-per-view at 247fighting.com, which is the website. So that's something that hopefully people jump on to support you. What are your thoughts about your supporters? Who are you grateful for? What's your gratitude list as we kind of wrap this up? I always want to give you that opportunity.
Well, I mean, I know my teammate or my team, we're gonna have like 30 people rolling up in a van.
Oh,
like,
man.
like we come strapped. Like that's the way we are here. But I just want to shout out all my teammates, my sponsors, K2 Fit, my girlfriend Tori, another sponsor, Combat 8 Nutrition. Jesus, I have Kettlebell Kings, Egg Weights, and just Ohio Cryo. I mean, those are a few of my sponsors, and I just want to shout out my teammate Skylar Bray. He's been helping me since before I made my amateur debut, and he's the reason why I'm where I'm at right now. He's helped me grind every single camp. Sat there in the saunas with me. He's watched me grow as a fighter. I mean, that's really all I can think.
Well, and for anybody who's your sponsor that you couldn't remember, I know you're grateful for them as well. And it's always nice to know in MMA, any individual sport, it's the individual and the whole team around them, even though you can't see that team when you're fighting. So it's been a pleasure getting to know you. I would love to have you back on. I would love to have you back on the show after your fight. It'll be great to watch your career. I've been watching Cam's career since his debut. So it's always exciting to watch amateurs come up through the ranks and really develop into the future of MMA. So thanks so much for you taking time out, Asher. And I can't wait to see you live in action August 7th for 247 Fighting Championships.
Thank you, man. Seriously, I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Have a good one.
You too, man.